King James Bible, lesson number 8. Now, most of that stuff that I just went over in the first half, I should have referred you to your sheet. A lot of that stuff, a lot of the people that we referred to is on here. You'll see, now, this thing moves from right to left. You got John Wycliffe, we just talked about him, William Tyndale, there's King Henry VIII, there's one of his daughters, Elizabeth there, and of course they throw in Shakespeare to give you a time frame. A lot of people know Shakespeare's writings. Down at the bottom it gives you the the Bibles. You got Wycliffe, or the Wycliffe Bible, the Tyndale New Testament, the Coverdale, Matthew's, the Great Bible. They chained the Great Bible to the pulpit at the church because they didn't have before everybody didn't have a copy of the Bible. So they would chain it to the pulpit. If you wanted to come read the Bible, you'd have to go down to the church and read it at the church. And so everybody didn't have a copy. Well, that was the whole purpose of what we've been talking about, Tyndale and some of those guys. Every man, every woman, boy, or girl, if they want a copy of the Bible, they need to have a copy of the Bible. And that's what they were trying to do. And give their life for it. Of course, then there's King James and George Washington. And of course, that gives you a little time frame there of that's pretty good information on there, and that'll help you. Now, those of you that the 2 lines of manuscript is on that little form. That rough draft of what I'm doing over there. That'll give you the 2 lines from Antioch and the other one from Alexandria. That'll help you if you haven't got one of those. Now, we worked our way down to King James. There he is. And it's just hard to see. I tried my best to do it in color. When his cousin, I had a picture of her a while ago, died, she assumed that he would take the throne. King Henry didn't have any more children. So King James was already James the Sixth of Scotland. He was already King of Scotland. He was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. The guys we took the mission trip, we were in that town, we stayed in that town, Edinburgh, Scotland. King James became the king when he was 13 months old. A fellow by the name of John Knox preached the sermon at his coronation. We were there at that church where King James went to church. We just got back from that trip not too long ago. We saw where King James and his wife sat. They had a pew there where they sat when they attended church there. The Church of Scotland. And then we went to John Knox's church there. Beautiful, beautiful. A lot of history over there where the King James and all of the King James history is there. Now, let me get back to what I was saying. King James was King James the Sixth of Scotland when his cousin Elizabeth died. He became King James the First of England, and he brought England and Scotland together, which started the foundation of the British Empire. He was the king of both places. He brought both of those together. And he ascended to the English throne. He became King James the First of England. And now, let me clear up something. I'm going to turn this off so we can turn the light back on. We discussed this just a little bit last week, and I'm going to give you this. How many of you in the room have ever heard King James was a homosexual? most Bible critics, they do not like the information I've been giving you. The first thing they'll say, if you talk to somebody and they're not a King James person, the first thing they'll say, they'll blurt it out of their mouth. They've never researched it, they've never looked at it, they'll blurt it out of their mouth, oh, King James is homosexual. Alright, I'm going to give you the story. When King James, he was the King of Scotland, he's now the King of England and Scotland, bringing both of those countries together. He has a man in his cabinet, or what they call, I guess, a court, is what they called it, on his court. His name was Anthony Weldon. He was part of James' court, and he was a native Briton. He hated Scottish people. King James was Scottish. They had some problems. They butted heads. Finally, King James says, if you can't hack it, get your jacket. And he let him go. And Anthony Weldon said this. He said he swore to gain revenge on King James. And in 1650, long after King James is already dead, Weldon saw his chance. He wrote a paper accusing James of being a homosexual. Obviously, King James is dead, so he was in no condition to defend himself. Everybody knew it was a lie. Everybody knew it was a lie. This Weldon fellow writes this paper that King James is a homosexual. Nobody paid attention to it. So, that's a lie. And they pretty well threw the article, Now, when all of these other Bibles, see, the King James Bible was originally named the Authorized Version. It was the only Bible. Well, you can't sell a new version. And you can't compete with a Bible that's called the Authorized Bible. So what do you got to do? They did some research. They found that article. They said, well, look at there. King James is a homosexual. Started publishing here just in recent years to discredit the Bible. Now, let's just say that story. You say, preacher, how do you know that story's true? Well, that's what history tells us. Let's just say it ain't true. Okay, got a question for you. In the book of Leviticus, it talks about very extensively how God is against homosexuality, right? Amen. Romans chapter 1 talks very extensively about being against. God, against. He'll turn you over to a reprobate mind. On and on and on he goes. He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah for homosexuality. You with me? If you were King James and you were homosexual, would you approve that Bible to be published? It's common sense. So, the next time you hear that, just tell them to go tell that to somebody that don't know any better. Or do some research. All right, here we go. King James ascends to the throne of England in 1603. Now look how this thing progresses. Now it has become, because of his cousin, the Spanish Armada, has become the world power. Powerful, most successful country. Now, in 1600, the English language is in its purest form. What I mean by that is, the dictionary in 1600 was a whole lot less words than the dictionary we have today. You say, explain that. Well, the word ain't is in our dictionary today. Is that pure English? You understand? Back in 1600, it's when the English language was in its purest form. Pure English. Now it's the most successful country, most powerful. Now the English language is in its purest form. He takes the throne in 1603, and in 1604, in January 1604, there was a fellow that came to King James and said, we've got a petition signed by 1,000 pastors, and we want to address some grievances to the king. We want you to hear. So King James forms the Hampton Court Conference in 1604. A lot of them were Puritans, and they wanted to meet with King James about some discrepancies between the Puritans and the Roman Church and different this, that, and the other. Well, this is what happened. The Bible translation issue wasn't on the agenda. I mean, it wasn't on the petition. They were grieved about something the church was doing. They want to put it before the king and let him take care of it. Well, that sort of just went by the wayside for some odd reason. And Dr. John Reynolds, the chief spokesman for the Puritans, presented to the King James the following words. On behalf of the Puritans, we need a translation be made of the whole Bible for the common man. Now you remember what that man said when he was being burned at the stake? Lord, open the King of England's eyes. Now remember, Bible translation wasn't even on the table. Wasn't even supposed to be brought up at the Hampton Court Conference. Dr. John Reynolds brings it up and says, King, what do you think about let's getting a Bible in English for the common man? The everyday, ordinary, common man like you and me. King James says, you know what? Pretty good idea. And the resolution said that the translation be made of the whole Bible from the Hebrew and Greek, and they set out to translate the Bible. Now, this is what they did. They set up 3 different companies. I don't know how many times y'all have ever heard this or seen this, but they set up 3 different companies. Three different committees. One at Westminster, one at Cambridge, and one at Oxford. These guys, they translated Genesis through 2 Kings. And in other words, there were actually 2 groups, 2 committees at Westminster, 2 at Cambridge, 2 at Oxford. And this first company, Genesis through 2 Kings, that was their deal they were supposed to translate. 5th company, they were New Testament epistles. All right, over here at Cambridge, wholly different location. 1 Chronicles to the Songs of Solomon. And another part did the Apocrypha. We'll go over that in a minute. The 3rd company, Isaiah through Malachi. Gospels, Acts, and Revelation. They divided the Bible up. Guess they brought all of the existing texts to the table that was in existence at that particular time. What was on the forefront of that table was Erasmus. Desiderius Erasmus. Y'all remember him? Talked about him a while ago. His Greek text that he snuck in, walked into the basement of the Roman Catholic Church. That was what was on the table. They brought all of these together, and all of these different manuscripts, they brought them together, and they started translating into English the Bible that we have. The Old Testament, if you want to write this down, remember this, the Old Testament was translated from the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text. That's Old Testament. That's Hebrew, with portions in Aramaic, and so on and so forth. The New Testament, obviously, is from Greek to English, and that was from the Textus Receptus. The Textus Receptus was only the New Testament, Greek to English. The Masoretic text was from Hebrew over to English. The Masoretic text. Hang on. Let me see if I got it wrote down. Ask me how to spell something. I'll find it in a minute. Has anybody got it? The Masorite, of course, anywhere that comes from the Masorites. I'll find it and I'll tell you how to spell it in a minute. The Masoretic text, the Old Testament, the Textus Receptus, the New Testament. Now, all these companies, let me show you what they did. This company, this first company, would do their Genesis through 2 Kings, and this other little group did their New Testament epistles, then they swapped. They checked each other's work. They did the same thing. They checked each other's work. Then, they took theirs, gave it to them, they took theirs, gave it to them, they took theirs, gave it to them, and they did it all over again. You with me? If there was any discrepancy, if this company says, hey, why'd y'all translate that this way for? They would have to explain it, and they'd say, what was your foundation for that? What Greek text did you get that out of to verify that? Oh, okay, you know, and so on and so forth. Now watch, this is very important. Psalm 12, 6, and 7. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver, tried as a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. These groups, they started translating in 1604. Anybody know when the Bible came out? How many years? 7 years. Purified 7 times. Now listen, folks. You do whatever you want to do. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. You use, read, whatever you want to. But I'm telling you, the NIV committee, the New American Standard Committee, it's a whole lot more than just getting 5 guys together and go, hey, let's translate us a Bible. Yeah. These guys here was very serious about it. This ain't no just, let's just 3 or 4 of us get together and say, hey, let's, you know, we're pretty smart. We just graduated last year. We know a little Greek, Hebrew. Yeah. The little Greek I know runs a pizza parlor, and the Hebrew runs a soup store. Yeah. I mean, these guys here, purified 7 times. That's what they did. And they translated the Bible. It started out with 54 men. 54 men. Some of them died, this, that, and the other. It wound up 47 that actually translated the Bible. 3 different companies, or excuse me, there's 6 different, excuse me, 2, 4, 6 different companies at 3 different locations. And they had all these Bibles laying on the table. Now, the original King James Bible, I don't know if I have one or not. I got one in my office. Has the Apocrypha books. Those are the Roman Catholic books. Has it in the King James, the original King James. Now, let me explain that, because what's going to happen is you're going to discuss this with somebody and say, oh, blah, blah, blah. The original King James had the old Catholic books in it. Okay. I do have a Catholic Bible over here. Somewhere. Catholic Bible go? Here we go. There's the Catholic Bible. The Apocrypha books are the books that are Roman Catholic books. Ecclesiasticus, Jeremias, Tobias, the Maccabees, 3rd and 4th Kings. It's all through the Bible. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you'll have 1st Kings, 2nd Kings, 3rd and 4th Kings, whatever that word is. Let's see what the next book is. Esdras, Tobias, Judith, and they got the book of Esther, Job. You know, it's intermingled with all the 66 books. You understand what I'm saying? In the Catholic Bible. These men went ahead and translated the Apocrypha, but they did not believe it was inspired Word of God. So what they did was, they took it out from within the Bible, and they placed it between Malachi and Matthew, in the middle of the Old Testament, New Testament. They all them books, they put them in the middle, because they believed they weren't inspired. Now, if you want to read in the middle, hey, it's no different reading Shakespeare, whatever. It's good reading. But it's not a part of the Bible. And that's the reason they pulled them out and put them in the center. The later editions took them out completely. So don't let anybody throw you that curveball. They didn't leave them in there. Chapter and verse markings, they put all in there, this, that, and the other. I was going to go over some of the let me read some of these guys. The First Westminster Company. Y'all see in your notes, Dr. Lancelot Andrews. Under Westminster, Lancelot Andrews. We're not going to do all of these, because it'll bore you stiff. We're not going to go over all 47 of these meetings. Dr. Lancelot Andrews, he was the Dean of Westminster. Once a year at Easter, he took a month to go visit his parents. During his vacation, he would find somebody that could teach him a language that he did not know. That way, after a few years, he knew every acquired modern language in Europe. How do you spend your vacation? These guys were just not just some NIV committee, New American Standard Committee. I know a little Greek and Hebrew. Let's go translate us a Bible. Knew 15 languages. Master of Greek. He debated Greek. And that's just many hours a day he spent private family devotions on his knees in prayer. Several of these guys. John Overall, he was the second one. He was one of the ones that was one of the main ones that found the Greek text that had 1 John 5:7 in it. All those Bibles over there don't have 1 John 5:7 in them. It talks about the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Or there are three that bear record in heaven. The Father, the Word, and so on and so forth. 1 John 5:7. This is actually Nestle's Greek text. And I'll explain that one to you later. 5:7. I can't even find 5. It's gone. It's not in here. I don't know about any of the rest of them. I don't have time to look. I know it's not in this one. I can't find it in that one because all of them are, I don't know. But he was one of the ones that found the Greek text that give the authorization to put first John 5:7 in there. All of these men, I'm not going to go over them, but you can look through your notes and find what all these men had accomplished. These were not just your everyday ordinary men. They were very educated, and they knew what they were talking about. And then in 1611, came out with the King James Bible. Now, I meant to tell you this. I forgot to tell you about this. 1603, King James comes to the throne. 1604, they start the process of the King James Translating Committee. This is called the Gunpowder Plot. Here's where King James's castle, you know, this is where Parliament met. Now watch, this is what happened. Roman Catholics knew they were translating this Bible. And they wasn't about to let it happen. They dug under the castle, filled it with explosive, or whatever they had back then. I mean, I forgot how much explosive stuff they had back there. They were going to wait until King James called Parliament together. And they were going to light it and blow them so they could, or blow them up so they couldn't translate the Bible. Somebody, there was a Roman Catholic fella on the Parliament. Somebody sent him a letter and said, don't go to Parliament today, because this is what we're doing. You don't need to show up, or you're going to get killed. This dude, this Roman Catholic, goes, hey King, you get one of these letters? With my hand up. King James, you get one of these? Telling you not to come today? Oh, I got one. It must have been just for me. King James heard about the plot. They go down and catch the fellow in the very act. God takes care. You don't have to worry about it. The devil has a plot. The devil has never outsmarted God. Never. And I thought that was a cool story. And that is found in that book that I was telling you about that the Catholic Church gave us a Bible. His name was, if you want to look him up, his name is Guy Fawkes. Is what his name was. The guy that devised the plot, and he's the guy that poured the gunpowder, and he was fixing to light it. And they got down there, all this barrels of gunpowder, King somehow guy says, King, did you get one of these letters telling you not to come today? And he's like, no, let me see it. And they find out about it. Anyway, you can read about it on the internet. It's an amazing story. I just said all that to say this. God knows all about it. Now, next week, I don't have time to get into it today. Hopefully next week. I'm going to get into these two guys right here. 1611, the King James Bible came out, and the 1611 was the authorized version for many years. Until 1870. In 1870, these two guys get together. And they say, Church of England, would y'all approve us? All we want to do is just correct a few things in the King James. There's just a few things in there we need to just correct and make it better. Church of England said, yeah, that'll be fine, as long as you stay with that text. They was very adamant, as long as you stay with that text. They said, oh, no problem, no problem. When they got behind closed doors, they brought in some text from Alexandria, Egypt. And from 1870, 1881, they come out with the Westcott and Hort. Westcott and Hort Greek text, which is basically this. The Westcott and Hort Greek text. This is the basis for all the other ones. In 1881, the Westcott and Hort Greek text come out. Then in 1881, the revised version came out. Revised version. And that was the start of the new versions. It was based upon these two gentlemen. They were involved in the occult. Didn't believe in the creation account. They neither believed in the ascension. These gentlemen believed in baby sprinkling, baby baptizing. They believed in praying for the dead. These two guys believed in purgatory. These two guys, well, I got a whole list of stuff that they believe. Hort took great interest in the works of Charles Darwin, while both he and Westcott rejected the literal account of creation in the Bible. Westcott did not believe in the second coming of Christ. Did not believe in a literal heaven. Both of these men reject the doctrine of hell. Okay, now watch. Both of these guys reject the doctrine of hell. They don't believe in hell. Y'all remember the first or second class? I put on the board the list of all the places where those Bibles right over there change hell to the grave. Remember that? You know why? Because these guys, all in Bibles, came from these two guys.
But they believe it now, don't you?
Oh yeah, they believe like we do now. So anyway, I don't have time to get into them, but if you want to do a little research on them guys for next week, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff that they believe and didn't believe. Folks, do what you want to. Help yourself. It's a free country. That's why we live in America. But I'm telling you, there's not but two Bibles. Your Bible in your lap either come from Egypt or Antioch, Syria. It either come from those King James translators or from knuckleheads like this. And they're not going to tell you this. You know, they're not going to tell you this at the universities and the colleges and the seminaries and the cemeteries. They're going to tell you this. Why? Because if what I'm saying is true, and you go check it out, it is true. But if what I'm saying is true, there's a bunch of professors going to be without a job.
Amen.
And there's a bunch of Bibles that's going to start getting dust on them at the bookstore, if what I'm saying is true. So they don't want you to know of what I'm telling you is true. So you'll keep buying all them other ones. It ain't about, they know what I'm saying is true. They just don't want you to know that I'm telling you the truth. Because it's about this. The love of money is the root of all evil. All right, that concludes lesson number 8.